What's going on, people? Welcome back to KGX to the Z TV. Appreciate everybody for checking in. Chelsea, yeah, man. A lot going on right now. Transfer window, full effect. Rumor mills, full effect. The Twitter ITKs, full effect. This is their time of the year to shine. But let's get into it, man. Let's talk about a lot of the rumored outgoings, a lot of the rumors as it relates to the players that are coming in. Just give you my thoughts. Make sure you hit that like before we start. Make sure you hit that subscribe, set up those notifications. Dedicated this year to try to give folks more content, more opinion pieces, more thoughts, maybe some more match reviews, maybe get into some tactical stuff. All the fun stuff that we love to watch on YouTube. Hopefully, we can help grow this channel together. But yeah, let's jump right in. So today we'll start with the rumored incomings, right? And the top of the list so far this week, so far today, has been all about Xavi Simons, right? So Xavi Simons, young Dutch international, made his way through La Masia, then over to PSG, and their fabled academy. If you were to put together a list of the top 5 academies across Europe in terms of producing talent, whether that be superstars, whether that be the sheer number of professional players that have made it to play at an elite level, La Masia would be up there, PSG's academy would be up there, Cobham would be up there, Man City's academy would be up there. That fifth, maybe the Red Bull group, things like that. But kind of getting back to Xavi, he's a player that's had a very cultured and educational upbringing when it comes to the kind of influences on his game, and you can see by the way he plays, he's a very, very technical player. Not too much of a left winger, so to say, even though he did play out on that position quite frequently over the last few years for Leipzig. But he's a player for me, and this is just my personal preference, that I would like to see a little bit closer, so a little bit in that left 10 role, in that left half space, that left channel, because that, personally for me, I think that's where he can do the most damage. Good dribbler, good ball carrier, very technical, good with very quick feet, so he could definitely do a job out there in that left wing side. He can beat a man 1v1, but for the profiles that we need and for the outgoings that look likely within that particular position, so you're thinking of Nkunku, you're thinking of João Felix, Xavi Simons would be a very, very good replacement for those two. Somebody that's probably going to cost between 50 and 70 million pounds. I've seen some of the rumors on there about Leipzig wants close to 70 million euros or 70 million pounds. Personally, I think that's way too much for a guy that I think he's coming down to the end of his contract. He's at a good age, 22, 23, so he definitely fits within our directors and our scouts within their profile bracket. Like I said, very technical, would definitely raise the skill level of it. Would he be an out-and-out starter? Nobody right now can tell you. I don't care what anybody says. Any of the big Twitter accounts, any of the big YouTube, Chelsea social media following people and stuff like that. No one knows, right? We've seen a lot of tactical flexibility in Maresca over these last few months. We've seen the different profiles that he likes and some of them that he doesn't like. We've got an out-and-out winger in Gittins that's coming in, albeit very inexperienced and still sort of learning his craft and things like that. So I don't think the competition in terms of minutes and things like that, I think there will be minutes for him because he can also play in that 10, and we've got quite a few guys with Esteval coming in. Obviously, Cole Palmer is going to start in that 10. You could probably throw in maybe even Enzo a little bit there. We've got some players that can play in that 10 role. João Pedro can do it if you want to play with 2 strikers or another striker more advanced. So we've got a interesting group of players that can fit into a wide number of positions. So I like the versatility that he brings. I'd be very excited if he came in. I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. I've heard people mention before that he'd be a very expensive backup option. Again, I don't think anyone out there particularly knows who's going to be a day in and day out starter for this team, other than the big names, right? Other than Caicedo's, other than the Cole Palmers, other than the Levi Colwells, the Cucureas, Reece James when he's fit, and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of positions that are up for grabs when it comes to the minutes, and for those folks to be able to make their case to get that position and make it their own. A lot of matches that we're going to play this year, right? Expanded Champions League format, more matches than the Conference League last year, because there's going to be an extra round of knockouts and things like that. 2 domestic cups. We just came off the Club World Cup, the season. So there's a lot of minutes. We know injuries are going to happen. It's just a nature of playing this many games and this many games at a very, very high level and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of time for folks to rotate and get minutes and things like that. So you're going to need a big squad. You're going to, especially when you're looking at how these other Premier League teams are sort of beefing up their squads as well. I know City and Pep has made mention about him not liking to have a very big squad because he doesn't like to leave folks up in the stands on match day. You know what? You get what you pay for, because last year when they were going through their injury crisis and they were down a lot of center backs and things like that, I bet you Pep would have really, really liked to have a big squad then. But it is what it is, and hopefully, we'll I have a feeling that we'll see some movement on Xavi Simons. There were some caveats attached to it that Chelsea wanted to have some outgoings before and things like that. But knowing how the club operates and how well we sell, I don't think that would be a too big of a process and too big of a deterrent to bringing Xavi Simons in if he is the player that Chelsea target. Another player sort of in that position that we've all seen rumored and has been going on for a little while is obviously Morgan Rogers from Villa. Much more expensive price tag. We've seen 80 million floated for him. That's going to be the Premier League price inflated due to him being English, him being young, England international. He's got ties to the Man City group, grew up in that Man City academy, so he knows the likes of Cole Palmer, he knows the likes of Delap, Romeo Lavia, and all those other City academy products that we've kind of procured over the last 2 years. So, he'd be a player. He's not really a wide player. He's definitely an interesting tactical fit because he can play in a lot of different positions. And to be honest with you, I don't know what his best position is. I know the positions on the field that I would like to have him in, and that's either that, if you're thinking about it from a tactical standpoint, from that advanced 8, so somebody who can pick up the ball around the midway line and just drive. But he's also played out on the wing with Aston Villa last year with sort of their counter-attacking style, and he can be effective there, although he's not really a 1v1 type of winger. But he could do a job in midfield, probably not in a double pivot. But if you're packing the midfield, so you're going up against a team that's going to be heavy in possession like a City, and you want to play 3 midfielders in there, and you want that third midfielder alongside Enzo and Caicedo to be athletic and to be able to get out on the counter and really to run at teams and hurt teams in the transition, he'd be a perfect fit for that. Whether or not Villa want to sell, it's all up to their PSR and their FFP and the football accountants that we've all as fans become over the last few years. There's rumors of them being interested in Nicholas Jackson, of them being interested in Garnacho. So there's definitely an opportunity there to pick up the phone to them and say, hey, what's going on with Rodgers? We're curious. If you guys, if you are forced to sell him, we would love, the right of first refusal and things like that. So he's definitely a player that keep your eye on. Don't know about his personal feelings about him wanting to move and things like that. I'm sure he's going to take the PC answer and say that no, we don't want to move. I want to stay in Villa. I'm enjoying my time here. He's working with the top manager, Unai Emery. Even though they missed out on Champions League qualification on the last day, they're still in the Europa League. They still have a pretty decent squad. Although they lost Rashford, they lost Asensio, who I thought were two key pieces in their second half resurgence last year. They're going to lose the goalkeeper and Emi Martinez, but they've still got some really good players. They got Tielemans. They've got Onana in midfield. John McGinn is club captain, can do a job. They still got Leon Bailey. They've got a really, really good squad that could probably afford to bolster it. But like I said, they've got financial issues, and that could result in either one of Rodgers or Watkins, or maybe even both being sold. We saw what they did last year with Duran. Got big money for him from Saudi. He's back in Turkey now after asking for a move there. So very, very interested with Morgan Rodgers again. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him in, even if it is at a slightly higher cost. For me, it's more about which of the two deals is easier to get over the line, which one doesn't drag on into the summer. I would love, and I always thought Chelsea does their best work, and I think most clubs do too, and this is something that I think Liverpool is doing a really, really good job of this summer, is getting their big targets in early, so that they can get them to gel with their new teammates, build that camaraderie, build that consistency, understand what they're being asked of from a tactical standpoint in the new club in terms of the formation with the manager and things like that. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll keep it on the next one. We'll keep it in that same sort of position with Eze. There were some links to him last week or the week before. Obviously, Arsenal's also interested in there. I haven't seen too much since we've been sort of linked to Xavi Simons and Morgan Rodgers. But he's a player that's a little bit older, so it would go a little bit against our transfer recruitment policy. But he's a player that ended the 24-25 season on an incredible high, an incredible run of form, ultimately culminating in Palace winning the FA Cup with him scoring the match winner in that one. So, I mean, he's a baller. I'd like him. I don't really think he's a left winger by any trade. He's definitely a powerful type of player that can pick up the ball, that can drive. He's sort of, I won't say sort of, he's definitely gotten better from a box crashing standpoint of crashing the box, getting shots off, scoring goals. That's how he scored the match winner in the FA Cup final. But would he want to come to Chelsea where he's not going to be a week in, week out starter? There's a lot of competition there in that midfield. We typically only play with a midfield of two, unless we're packing it like we did against PSG in the Club World Cup final. But even with that, we played Reece James in there, so that's another body that could potentially get some minutes in there. I personally, I don't see him as a viable option. I've also heard two rumors about the salary that he wants, and like I said, he's an established player, established in the England national team. He's going to want close to $200K a week, and even though I think he's worth it from a skill standpoint, I just don't see Chelsea and the board in this model splashing that kind of cash on someone that is not a week in and week out starter, especially when you have the likes of guys who have been performing at a very high level for a few years now, like Cole Palmer, like Caicedo, like Enzo over the last 12 months, and things like that. So I expect those rumors to die out soon. Whether or not he moves to Arsenal, I think it's completely up to Palace. Palace has a few high-profile assets that they could really, depending on what their situation in Europe is, and if they remain in the Conference League and don't get pushed back into the Europa League, which is where they should have finished based off winning the FA Cup, they could potentially lose out with Gahey. They could potentially lose out Adam Wharton and things like that. But if they bring those three guys back, they've got to be one of the favorites for the Conference League, which sounds crazy. And I know Palace fans will definitely want to be in the Europa League. And after seeing the 15th place team lose to the 17th place team in the league last year in the Europa League, they might even feel like they have a good go at the Europa League as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Palace does and whether or not they can hold on to those players. But Eze, for me, Of course, I'd take him because I think he's a baller, but I just don't think it's going to happen. One of the positions, as we move on to the next one of the positions and players that we really need to sort of get a hold on is we need to give Cucurella some cover at that left back position. He's a player that's just, he's been so durable, knock on wood. He's played so many minutes, whether it be for us or the Spanish national team in the last couple of years in terms of the Euros as well as the Nations League. He's just been incredibly valuable. Our leading scorer in calendar year 2025. Got us the match winner versus Man United. Popped up with big goals all the time. Can play in that inverted role. Can play high and left. Has been incredibly well at box crashing, timing his runs, headers, place shots, and things like that. So he's a player that we almost moved on a couple of years ago. Out on loan to United, and thankfully we didn't because he really turned his Chelsea career around. And so credit to Cuckoo. But he's a player that we also, he's a little bit older, 25, 26, 27 even, that we need to just, every once in a while just give him a natural replacement and just give him a natural rest. You look at Liverpool, they've got Andy Robertson, they've got Kirkes in there now. Man City just brought in Ait Nori. They've got some young guys that played in there, Nico O'Reilly and those folks. So, if you want to be a top team, you're going to need cover at a lot of positions. And one of the names that are being floated around is Jurel Hato. So another young Dutch international just breaking onto the national scene from Ajax. Rumored at around £40 million. He's a player that can play left back as well as cover as center back. So even though we don't really need another left-footed, left-sided center back, if we're going to keep Badiashile to go along with Colwell, having that kind of versatility isn't too bad. And if things would have worked out, and we'll get on to him a little bit later with Renato Vega, he would have been a nice replacement. But I also think that we might want to look at someone that's a little bit more of a different profile in that left back spot. So we've got Cucurella, who can go inside, he can go outside, and provide those kind of coverages. But I wouldn't mind just a traditional left back, someone that can just get up and down the wing, that's got pace, that's good defending 1v1, pretty decent aerially in there, because at times Cucurella does get caught out because he's not the tallest. Hato would definitely fulfill that aerial part on there, but I don't know, granted I haven't seen too much of him. I don't know what he's like getting up and down that left-handed side. But he's a player that I think he's definitely going to make a move to the Premier League. He's got the profile, he's got the attributes to really, be a top player from the little bits that I have seen of him. So wouldn't mind bringing him in, and just to, like I said, just to have that cover. The next two names that we'll talk about real quick are names that have been floated. One of them has a lot more buzz around him than the other, but the other one has recently been popped up, and that first one is definitely Rodrigo. We've all seen him. We know his game. We're familiar with him being played out of position and sort of him being the fall guy once Mbappe came. So you got Mbappe, you've got Vinicius in that 3-5-2 system that what's the name? Xabi Alonso likes to play. Rodrigo's obviously the one on the chopping block. He's the one that's folks have been fielding calls. Arsenal were interested. Liverpool might be interested in there. Bayern might be interested in. Just thinking about where he would fit and whether or not he's really attainable. I don't know, because Rodrigo hasn't made up his mind as to whether or not he wants to stay and fight for his position in Real Madrid, or if he wants to come and try to get some more game time. Either way, I think he's locked into the Brazilian national team next year for the World Cup. So I don't think whatever he chooses in his situation will result in a hit towards his international rep, especially with Carlo Ancelotti being the manager of Brazil now. He's definitely going to get minutes and definitely going to be a prominent player there. It just depends on where he's going to particularly play, and that's the thing with Rodrigo. We all know the kind of player he has and the kind of attributes and quality. He's hardworking. He's got pace. He's got a decent eye for goal, although he's never been a really high volume scorer. But we've always seen him play out of position. So the risk with Rodrigo is can he really justify the 80 million pound move, 90 million pound move plus the salary to the Bengals from the left wing when we haven't really seen him consistently do it? So big risk, calculated risk, depending on what he would want and depending on if he even wants to leave. I mean, of course, you would love to bring in a player like that because he immediately raises the starting 11 and things along those lines. So definitely a player that will probably take this saga on further and further into the transfer window, but he needs to do it because folks are going to start making up their minds and they're going to start, clubs are going to start finding those left wing replacements. Luis Diaz's name is still out there. Rafael Leao's name is still out there, and things like that. So, Rodrigo needs to shit or get off the pot because there's a lot of folks that would like to have his signature, but they just don't know because Rodrigo hasn't made it known where his intentions lie. And if we've seen if the Club World Cup is any indication, it looks like his time at Madrid might be coming to an end. So his best move might be to move abroad. So we'll see. The last name on this incoming list is Yildiz from Juventus. Juventus is not young Turkish international, number 10. Got the number 10 shirt last year. I think a lot was expected of him. And in fairness, I don't think he lived up to it. But to be honest with you, that whole Juventus side was just a disaster last year. Starting with Thiago Motta coming in, getting fired halfway through the season, getting Muani on loan second half of the season, the drama going around with Vlahovic and the rumors about him canceling his contract. Then you've just got the incomings, the outcomings. They loaned in Vega, who had a pretty decent second half of the season and loan spell there. But they're a side that they're in turmoil, they're in flux, and would they really want to move on one of the most promising young talents? I know when you think of the Turkish national team, you think of immediately you think of Arda Güler. When it comes to young talents, you think of Canalagu in terms of being their old staple in the midfield. But it's really, Yildiz is really a very interesting prospect. Great with the ball at his feet in terms of dribbling, beating a man. End product isn't necessarily there right now. The final decision making isn't necessarily there, as you would expect for a lot of young players. But he's definitely somebody that is worth sort of keeping your eye on and keeping in communications with. But I don't think the rumors of him leaving are realistic. I know they just spent 30 odd million or maybe a little bit less to make Conceição a permanent from his loan last year. So, you got Conceição, you got Yildiz on there. That's a pretty good wing tandem. Depending on what they do with the striker there, that could be a pretty decent front three and one that could potentially take advantage of Inter sort of falling down a little bit as they get older, as they lose Inzaghi and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Yildiz, but I don't think there's any chance at him making a move this summer. I think he needs that year of one more year of playing in Italy, playing at a top side, being the main cog and carrying the onus of that attack and really developing his game and getting those goal numbers up, getting those assist numbers up in order for him to sort of even think about making the next move. So we'll see how it goes. And we'll, like I said, I'd love to have him in there, but at the same time, I don't think that he'd be willing to move. And we've got another touchline winger in Gittins that can potentially play that position. So we'll see.